everyone. Welcome to another episode of Crypto Current. Your host here, Richard Carthon. And today I got a very special guest all the way out from Connecticut. We got Douglas with INX. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me, Richard.
Of course, I'm great. I'm really excited to learn more about what you have going on. And we have a really great interview lined up for everyone listening today. But before we get started, how about we learn a little bit more about you? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I'm Douglas Borthwick. I came to America at 16 from Scotland, did Carnegie Mellon University, a couple of years at Lehman Brothers, then went off to Yale Business School, then ran some foreign exchange trading desks at Morgan Stanley, ran a proprietary trading at Merrill Lynch, went to Standard Chartered, ran a Latin American trading book, then started up a company called Chapdelaine under the TP-ICAP, which is the largest interdealer broker umbrella, where I created a way for folks to trade currencies electronically. And then I was kicking the tires about finding a way that used the blockchain, that looked into crypto, but did it in a very regulated manner. One day I was talking to some people, went over to Tel Aviv to talk to Shai Datika that had started up INX. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And really what Shai did is he surrounded himself with folks from the legacy world and folks from the crypto world to create what we believe is going to be, the future for US equities in general. And all assets that trade in the US, we believe in the next 5 years will trade digital. We created an exchange for the trading of digital currencies, but also digital securities. And we're also created the actual product or the security and registered with the SEC for the last 2.5 years, creating a security that allows retail investors for the first time to get invested in digital securities. And that's part of what we're here to talk about, which obviously is the IPO that's ongoing right now. There's an F1 that's registered at the Edgar database. That sounds boring, but the SEC has a thing called the Edgar database where our F1 is posted. And if your listeners want to go there and check it out, that's really the statement of record concerning our company and our IPO.
Which is really exciting, and definitely want to dive a little bit deeper into that and to just quickly elaborate on that. So for everyone listening, of course, in the crypto blockchain space, you have your ICOs, your initial coin offering, or your STOs, IEOs, all kinds of ways that in the crypto space, you have these either projects or coins that come into the market, but they are going the traditional route, IPO, initial public offering, going through the SEC, United States. So very official, very exciting, and definitely want to learn more about how y'all been able to get to this point. But before we kind of dive into that, what was your first introduction into the crypto blockchain space? Like what year was it? And then, of course, as you learned about it, I know that you just decided that you met with your friend in Tel Aviv who was working on INX. So give us a little bit of background on that.
Well, I think early on I had heard of, I was working at Morgan Stanley, and I think I remember seeing Litecoin sort of coming over the tapes, and that was Charlie Lee. And I thought that's an interesting thing that he's doing there. And Charlie actually is an investor in INX. As is Ricardo Spagni from Monero and a couple of other luminaries within this sort of business. But really, crypto to me sounded like I was more attracted on the payment side because I was working in FX and foreign exchange. And I liked the idea that FX takes 2 days settlement. Sometimes it's 1 day, but the same day or in a matter of minutes is just unheard of. And so, like Ripple is something, or XRP at the time I found interesting. I find it less so now. But at the time, it was sort of like, here's someone that's going after the payments business where I can buy something and transfer it to my friend abroad in seconds. And to me, that just blew my mind, and it made me realize, this is incredible. But then I started thinking about how do you take something like this and make it broader for the rest of the world? Because maybe 0.2% of the population talks about Bitcoin, but everyone else in the population, maybe 80%, really talks about securities. Now, securities that we trade today are sort of very old and go back, to the 20s. In that they open up at 9 o'clock in the morning, they close at 4:30. If there's bad news, you can't do anything until the next day at 9 a.m. And that to me is crazy. So it's not 24 hours trading. Yeah. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Millennials today, according to a Charles Schwab study, in their top 5 holdings, one of them is GBTC. Well, let's face it. That means that they're digital oriented. They think digital is important. And this is the Amazon generation that wants something delivered in an hour, not in a week's time. Right. And so securities are something that you don't get the ability to trade in. And they look at their dad who gets bad news on Nike at 4 o'clock on a Friday. And they laugh at him and he says, I'll get out of it 9:30 on Monday. Are you kidding me? You got to
Right.
wait for a whole weekend to get out of something because there's bad news. So our belief is that securities are going to move to the digital space because the younger generation demands it. And that younger generation is about to inherit the largest wealth transfer in history. So, the last thing that isn't digital that we know of, music's gone digital, email's gone digital, pretty much everything you know has gone digital except for equities. And it's there's so much inefficiency and waste in the way the system's done. And we said at INX, well, let's find a way to make it efficient. If you want to list on multiple exchanges around the world at once, you got to be digital. If you want to trade 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you got to be digital. And if you want investors that are the retail general public to be able to trade these, you've got to create the product. And the product didn't exist before us. There were security tokens, as you've talked about.
Right.
But these security tokens were only for accredited investors or wealthy individuals.
Exactly.
And our view was that there's no way that that's ever going to go mainstream if there's only 1,000 people that can look at it at a time.
There's not more
so we
access.
had to actually create the product over 2.5 years, over 950 days, with the SEC creating this product that is the INX token, which is, incredible because it's for the first time someone that's a retail individual in certain states can invest in an early stage project that's on the blockchain. It's the most transparent IPO in US history because you can watch as we're selling tokens. You can see it live on the Ethereum blockchain. It's the first ever security that has built-in KYC AML. And this is something that the regulators really, really want. Right. If you own Nike stock, you can take it and you can give it to someone on ISIS and they can sell it and they get the money. And Nike doesn't know that you own it. They can't tell that. With our security, the way we've set it up, you can't sell that to someone else unless they've already been whitelisted through a KYC platform. So every holder of INX tokens can prove without any doubt that they've gone through a KYC AML to the highest standard. But they also can't sell it to a bad actor. And at any time, INX, our company, we can see exactly who's holding. And let's say we need to pay a dividend or there's a distribution. I can pay it directly into their wallet. If you're Nike and you pay a dividend, you got to go through 3 or 4 different third parties. The cost of that is astronomical. And so what we've created is a token that makes securities trading make a lot more sense. It's much more efficient. And we're the first to do it. It's very exciting.
It is. And I mean, there's a lot that you just said that I definitely want to unpack. And one of the places I want to start before getting back into the security tokens, you brought up the point that, we're about to go through the largest wealth exchange in recorded history. Can you kind of expand on that? And what do you mean by that?
Sure. Well, the baby boomers, which is the population that's made up of my parents. I'm 50 years old. My parents are in their 80s. And those folks, that was the largest generation. It was sort of the generation that was born post World War II or during the World War II. And as they move on in years, the assets that they've accumulated pass down onto the younger generation. And the younger generation is one heck of a lot more astute when it comes down to technology, when it comes down to how digital is important, how next time delivery that happens automatically and right now makes sense. And they're certainly not fearful of digital or of electronics. I don't know about you, but my kids grew up with an iPad in their hands since they were 3 months old. So younger generations understand tech to a much greater understanding, I think. And this is the same all the time. I remember helping my parents out with a VCR. And at the same time, now my kids teach me how to get a virus off my computer. But the reality is, as we go down in generations and as wealth moves from one generation to another, there's an expectation of what folks want. Now, Nike right now, the issuer, they'd love to go digital. They'll save a lot of money doing cross-border listing. They'll save a lot of money paying dividends. They'll know exactly who their consumer is. The consumers want folks to go digital because guess what? By them going digital, I can trade it 24 hours, 7 days a week. And the regulators want them to go digital because of one, the efficiencies, but 2, the KYC AML aspects of it. And the fact that they can freeze at any moment any person that owns Nike stock, let's say. And that's very, very important when it comes to AML.
Yeah. And kind of going into the next phase of a question that I had was, the importance of security. And thanks for expanding on that. And I would say that the newer generations, the people that are more aware and better with technology as it continues, is the security aspect and just making sure that because we live in a digital age, we are very mindful of our data and like what that means, and being able to have more control of our own information, but then also access to financial information in ways for us to know what's going on in the financial world. So I think, what y'all are doing with having the transparency, as transparent y'all being with the KYC and with security tokens, is very powerful. So can you kind of break down a little bit of like, what your security token is and how powerful and impactful that is?
Let's talk about transparency, and I think how our offering relates to any other offering in the blockchain space. So you talk about ICOs before IEOs. With these, it's sort of like someone writes a white paper. They're asking you to, trust me, I'll do what you say and send me some money.
Right.
When you register with the SEC, what you do is you say, this is exactly how much we expect to make. This is Ernst & Young, who's going to audit every single time that we do something. This is how much everyone internally makes in terms of compensation, how many tokens they already own, how much equity they own. This is our business plan, how we expect to make money, when we expect to make money. You lay yourself naked in front of regulators and you publish that through this F1 prospectus on the Edgar database. And if we veer from this in any material way, it's not sort of like, oh, sorry guys, catch me next week. It's, it's jail time.
Right.
And so when someone buys a US regulated security, they understand that it's not just sort of like, trust me, it's also that the SEC is watching over us to make sure that we do things the way that we've said that we're going to do. Now, the way that we structured our security token, and in terms of transparency, there's no other exchange operating in the crypto space that offers quarterly numbers that are audited by Ernst & Young and are printed at the SEC so everyone can see it. There's no other exchange where you know the absolute ownership, who owns what. There's no other exchange that has advisors and says, these are our advisors, this is how much they're getting paid. Lots of guys talk about other exchanges on Twitter, on elsewhere. You have no idea if they're getting paid by those exchanges or not. With us, you know exactly who's getting paid and why they're getting paid. So we're allowing folks to sort of open up the door into exchanges and see what they are, and the transparency is absolute. And even when it comes to the IPO, it's the most transparent IPO in history because of the fact that normally the allocations are done behind closed doors. As CoinDesk pointed out in an article last week, you can go on Etherscan and you can actually watch as tokens are transferred from our firm treasury into individual wallets as people participate in the IPO. This has never been done before. It's absolutely unheard of. And what we're doing is we're shining a light on an area of the world that folks traditionally have said, it's a little bit dodgy. And we're shining a light out and saying, you know what? If you think it's dodgy, here's absolute transparency.
Yeah, and it's needed, especially on the financial world. And like one of the things that came to mind when we first started talking about this, the timing of everything right now, even with COVID, the wanting more transparency into everything that's going on is definitely where this next decade is going. And it's absolutely everything with COVID is shining a light on the digital space. And especially when it comes to, I believe, crypto and everything else, like what I think would have taken a decade to get to, I think we're getting there a lot faster, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, just because there's such a gigantic light on everything that's going on in this space.
COVID for sure has pushed things towards that digital way. In the old days, we thought you needed someone running around on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in order to get equities to trade. Well, guess what? No one's been running around for quite some time, and everything's doing quite well. NASDAQ does well. New York Stock Exchange does well. We don't necessarily need that sort of thing. So, we can trade things digitally now. It's not that important. But one thing that's important, if you are going to trade digital products, you've got to put in the time to make sure that what you have is sort of audited and sound. There's some exchanges that will list something that's maybe been around for 11 days and say, oh, no, look, you know what, caveat emptor, buyer beware. The view that we have at INX is not similar. The view we have at INX says, look, we'll list things on our security token platform that we believe are registered correctly with the right institutions. That's number one. And on the crypto trading platform, if it's registered if it's seen as a cryptocurrency by the US government, we'll allow it to be able to be traded on our cryptocurrency side. So, for us, it's much more important that it's not about caveat emptor, buyer beware. For us, it's much more important that the folks that register to trade on our platform, the folks that get involved in our IPO, that they understand that their interests are certainly at heart. And that's why we've got 200 plus pages in this F1 prospectus that lists all of the things that could go wrong. And notably, we've had a lot of folks that have come to us and saying, what, this could go wrong? And sort of like, yeah, things can go wrong in any sort of issue.
Right.
But the difference is no one else has had to tell you that because they've done an ICO. And in the ICO, people just sit there and say, this, they have a rocket ship and they have someone screaming about how it's going to the moon. Well, you know what? And with US securities, you don't do that. You have to say, these are the risks. And it's very important, I think, that people understand there are risks.
Yes.
So,
but also identifying them and just being, again, going back to one of the things you said earlier about transparency, a 200-page. So for people who aren't very used to researching and doing all this stuff and just go and do whatever, the 200-page document is very, very, very thorough on all of the things that could possibly go wrong. That is incredible in the crypto blockchain space. It's pretty remarkable. And
and it's taken, I think, about 4 different law firms to put that together with us, with a back and forth with the regulators, on all regulators. Now, before us, the term security token really hadn't been sort of worked through with regulators. So there were Regulation A+, there were Regulation D, but nothing to the extent of a full F1 prospectus, which is, the prospectus, or similar to what a Nike stock is. In the amount of regulatory hurdles that we had to walk through, but also the effort that we put in to make people understand the risks is it's unheard of in this space.
Yeah. And one more thing that I want to kind of touch on, and I know you brought it up a couple of times for security tokens, and I'm sure a lot of people listening have a really good idea of what it is, but for some of the newer people who are coming on listening to the show, can you just give a basic overview of, so your security token versus a regular cryptocurrency?
Yep, sure. So a regular cryptocurrency is something that you use for, payment back and forth with someone or storing wealth. A security token, as we've built it, has a number of different things. Really, it's fractionalized ownership of something. It could be of equity. Not for us. So with us, it's a fractionalized ownership of potential future cash flows. So net operating, cash flows or profit, I think would be the non-legal term. What we say is, look, we'll pay out 40% of our profit going forward forever. It's not like a dividend that can be changed by the board of managers, but there's actually a contractual right for the buyer of the security token to get, on a pro rata basis, 40% of our payout every year. On top of that, we say, look, we're raising 117 million, but 70 million of that goes into a cash fund. That's because if you want institutions to trade with you, you have to have a big pile of cash sitting there. Otherwise, you're not worth trading with. But if we don't execute on our mission and our vision, and if we have problems, that cash fund, the first lien on that, or the preferred preference, goes to the token holders. So they get that back. So there's a downside protection inherent in the security token. So really what we're saying is, give us 70 million to put into that cash fund, give us $47 million, and let us use that as the capital to buy some more licenses, to go out there in the market and market, to open up and start trading. Now, 47 million sounds like a lot of money, but that 47 million is buying 40% of the upside or of the profits of our firm going forward. I remember 2 years ago, Binance did an ICO. They raised $15 million. Today, the market cap is something like $2.8 billion.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that what they make is something like $500 million a year. 20% of that would be, $200 million a year. Multiply that in a 10 multiple, you're talking about $2 billion a year would be the equivalent of what they would be valued at if they were to take 40% of their profits.
Right.
Okay. So we're asking for 47 million. And we're, startup, but we've had the technology. We're just ready to pull the trigger. So that's around 2.3% of the Binance valuation. So that's sort of what we're valuing ourselves at. And it's not really a valuing at. It's what we're saying. This is how much we need to raise in order to execute on this vision. And our vision is different from others. Whereas someone like a Binance or a Coinbase lists cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and Bitcoin. They also list utility tokens. And some of these utility tokens, you got to say, are questionable. Are people buying them for utility or buying them because they think they're going to go up in price like a security?
Right.
What we're listing is cryptocurrencies. And then separately, we're also listing security tokens. And security tokens are registered with the SEC, a security just like a Nike stock or an Amazon stock, with the same sort of, rights and obligations behind them. And so, our view is, in the old days, you'd have some companies that just do security tokens. And an example would be like a T0. And they list 3 security tokens. 2 of them are their own self. And the other one, I think, is Aspen. It's a real estate concern. Now, they're limited to, or at least were limited to, accredited investors. So maybe you have 1,000 people, 2,000 people watching these tokens trade. That's really not a lot. And that's because security tokens before we came along were limited to just accredited investors. Mm-hmm. What we've done is created a product that can be bought and traded immediately by the retail investor. So the millions of people that are trading Bitcoin on our platform, should we get that many folks involved, will turn around, click a switch or click a tab and suddenly be able to trade security tokens. A whole list of security tokens that can be traded by them immediately. So now you've gone from 1,000 people looking at something to millions of people looking at something. And now you've got liquidity. Because now you're looking like NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. And that's what we wanted to create. And before we came along, that product didn't exist.
Yeah.
And neither did the exchange. And we went to the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, said, we'd like to list here. They said, sorry, we can't list digital tokens. That's a great opportunity for us then, isn't it?
Yeah, to be a first mover in there and to bring access to the security tokens to the greater crypto trading community, just like you said, having access to these security tokens is going to be very powerful and provide a lot of opportunity and liquidity.
But it's not just the crypto trading community. The crypto trading community is maybe 0.2% of the population that really gets into crypto, that talks about it, that tweets about it all day long. 80% of the US population has equities, either in their pension fund, in their 401k, or they actually take positions themselves on E-Trade or Ameritrade. One of our board members actually was the CEO of Ameritrade. But so 80% of the population hasn't heard of INX yet. But for them, this is a huge leap forward for securities. If Nike could trade 24 hours, 7 days a week, have AML, KYC, and do dividend payments directly into people's wallets, this would be amazing for them. But they haven't heard about us yet. Because you knock on mainstream media's door and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And it's sort of like when Katie Couric did that interview way back, and then she said, the internets. Does anyone heard of the internets? That's what it reminds me of here. And yet for folks in the crypto community, they look at our token and they say, you're putting handcuffs on crypto here because you're doing KYC, AML. So 0.2% of the population looks at us and says, maybe this is the future, but you're putting handcuffs on what already is a good thing. The security side, 80% of the US population is saying to us, this is the most incredible thing we've ever seen. The SEC would talk about it as being a new asset class. Well, think about that, a new asset class. There's debt, there's equity, and now security tokens. Now that gets back to what is a security token? Well, let's say you've got future earnings and I want to fractionalize you. And I say, you know what, Richard, going forward, I think maybe you can make millions, tens of millions of dollars. So I'd like you to sell 40% of your future earnings to me. Now, all your future earnings have to be paid into a trust. And that trust is going to give me 40% of it. And then from that, I'll buy it today at a net present value of something, maybe be a little bit less than that. And then as you start doing better and better, my security in you starts going up in price. Now, there's NBA players who are already trying to get to tokenize their contracts. Yeah. But let me put it something else. Someone on Fifth Avenue, they've got a Van Gogh on their wall. They love that Van Gogh. They'd never sell it. It's been in their family for 100 years, or however many years you can have. But their house is crumbling around them, but they can never sell the painting. So they tokenize the painting. It can still stay on their wall. They get money up front today. They can do up their house. The owner of that token now has a position in a Van Gogh. And if Van Gogh starts selling all around the world for higher prices, the price of that security token is going to go up in price. And that's just simple things like paintings or people's careers and people's earnings. But also Nike. I mean, let's look at Overstock, the stock. That equity now is trading in a tokenized format 24 hours a day over at T0. All equities are going to trade 24 hours. And that's a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. Right. Because that's every single equity is told by the millennial, I want to trade you 24 hours or I'm not buying you. They're going to move over. There's going to be a tidal wave of business. And INX is going to be sitting there saying, list here. Yeah. I mean, y'all position yourself in a really opportune place. And it makes a lot of sense. So, a final question I kind of have for you is, where do you see this industry headed in the next 3 to 5 years or even the next decade? Like, how soon do you think realistically that you'll start to see not only the equities side of trading start to really dive into getting into the 24-hour trading standpoint? Or like, when do you think the crypto community is really going to start to like build on this side as well?
And, where do you see this headed?
Well, I see this is less the crypto community getting excited about it and more the rest of the world getting excited about crypto, or certainly blockchain. Because the rest of the world doesn't understand what blockchain can do for them and the efficiencies it can create. A lot of people say sometimes that folks are looking for, with the blockchain, people are looking for problems in order to say that this is the solution. And the problem is the way that equities trade right now isn't very efficient, but it will be if it's done on the blockchain. And we're proving that right now. Now, in terms of 5 to 10 years, this reminds me of The Graduate. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Dustin Hoffman. And someone pulls him aside and says, you know what? I'm going to have 2 words for you. I've got 1 word for you. It's plastics. Plastics is the future. And that was back in the early 70s or something, where plastics suddenly became, this was the high tech of the world. And I think that today, digital assets is the plastics of today. And that folks that get into this kind of area are going to see a tremendous move of assets towards that area. I'd say in the next 5 years, you're going to have the first digital currencies. China's already working on that. Europe's working on that. The UK is working on it. And even the US is working on it. I think Jerome Powell said a couple of weeks ago, what he likes about the blockchain is the KYC AML aspect. Well, I'll tell you something. We're the only security in the world that has that today. On top of that, so you have currencies moving onto the blockchain. You already have digital commodities. So, you could think of Bitcoin as a digital commodity. You could think of Ethereum as that. But also you could think about gold, the way that Pax Gold is trading right now, and others that are trading a digitized format. It makes sense because you'd want to be able to transfer one thing from one person to another without it being in a suitcase. And then after that, you're going to have equities. There's already been one equity that's done. There's also fixed income. There's treasuries already in a digitized format that ARCA Fund came up with. So we're already seeing first movers that are making these adjustments and making these changes. And it starts with one, it moves to another. The word has to get out because here's the thing. The securities market is a huge behemoth. It's like trying to turn a tanker that's been going for 50 years in one direction. It takes a lot of push and pull. And we talked to 30 Act and 40 Act mutual funds. And they said, look, we love your idea, but our back office isn't ready to accept security tokens yet. So what do you mean? They said, well, prospectuses that are given out to folks that buy a mutual fund, they say stocks and bonds. And this isn't a stock and it's not a bond. And that's what we're up against. Is you've got millions of prospectuses around the world that have to be updated to include security tokens. Now, will they do that? Absolutely, because as we've talked about, this millennial generation is going to absolutely demand it. No one is going to wait a Friday at 4:00 until Monday at 9:30 to get out of a crummy stock.
And I think you bring up a lot of really interesting points in that, and I appreciate you diving into that. And I really do think that our industry is moving in that direction, and our generation, that's what we're seeking, is to have access, the 24-hour access. And we're already starting to see people capitalize all over it. Even with people using kind of exchanges, like other exchanges right now that give you more access and can quickly buy things. Just like you said, if someone's stuck at 4 p.m. on a Friday, they don't have to wait till Monday at 9 to fix it. So it's only a matter of time. Thank you for putting this all on our horizon. INX is definitely on to some really, really cool things, as he brought up the IPOs coming up real soon. But, before you go and before...
Right now, it's happening right now.
Oh, it's happening.
As we speak.
As we speak, it's happening right now.
And in fact, we put out PR on Friday. We're now the first ever U.S. security IPO that accepts crypto for payment. This has never been done before. And so, we accept crypto for payment starting on Monday at 10 a.m. So that's something very exciting. But if you want to learn more about security tokens, and I think I talked about this before the program, we have a YouTube channel, INX Limited. Go there. We've got 4 out of 5 videos that we've already dropped that really go through what security tokens are and help people understand, what they can do for you.
For sure. And I was also going to ask, what are some other ways that people can learn more about INX and also learn more about you if they want to connect? For
sure. Well, you can go to inx.co. You could go to token.inx.co. You could check me out at DC Borthwick on Twitter. And look, we're trying to be everywhere right now. Look me up on LinkedIn, look me up on Twitter, wherever you want. I'm certainly open to discuss this, and very, very happy to be here with you, Richard.
I appreciate it. And before I let you go, what is a final thought that you want to leave with everyone here today?
Plastics.
Awesome.
That's what security tokens are. Whereas plastics in the early 70s was the exciting thing to get into. I think that security tokens, digital assets, is absolutely where the future's moving, and where there's a huge amount of assets that have to transfer onto the blockchain, and that's going to be the future.
Excellent. Well, that's a really great last thought. Everyone, again, listening, plastics, aka security tokens, be on the lookout. Again, Douglas, appreciate your time here today.
Thank you.
For everyone listening, stay crypto. Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of Cryptocurrent. For more information on this episode and all of our episodes, please visit us at www.crypto-current.co. Stay up to date with the latest news in cryptocurrency. You'll receive daily emails Monday through Friday that are personalized and curated content specific to you and your interest, powered by artificial intelligence. Are you an accredited investor looking to invest in cryptocurrency? Crescent City Capital can help. Go to crescentcitycapital.com for more information. If you're finding value in our content, please take 5 minutes to leave a 5-star review and a great comment. Also, please make sure to share this podcast with others. Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the quality of this podcast. I can only thank my amazing producer, Andrew DeRitter, with DeRitter Productions, who has put this together. If you have any podcast, visual, or video needs, please go to DeRitterProductions.com. That's DERITTER Productions.com.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Cryptocurrent with Richard Carthon. We'll be back with more exciting developments from the world of blockchain and cryptocurrency next week. But until then, stay cryptocurrent.
Please use available exits now.